right, welcome back to the box office, guys. Today I got maybe my last episode of the week. We had a lot of boxing this week. There's some fights I didn't even get to talk about, but main event, ESPN. Let's get down to it. Joe Smith Jr. versus Maxim. I'm sorry. And we're gonna see if we can get some coin here. We're gonna see what the odds are. The Bovada odds were a minus 350 for Joe Smith, meaning you have to bet $350. On Joe Smith, if he wins, you get 100 back. You bet 100 on Maxim, you get 265. That was Bovada. That was as of like a day or two ago. So always keep an eye out to see where the money's gonna be. To see if the line changes. If the line changes, that means someone was betting, or a lot of people were betting on a specific side because they believe something's going to happen. They believe they know something that the odd makers don't. So the odd makers, because so money was placed on, let's say, Joe Smith, they'll make you pay 400 instead of 350 to get that at 100. But with that, let's move on to our next slide. We're going to show the two fighters that we have on our main event on ESPN. So Joe Smith, fun fact about him, if you guys remember, he was actually a huge underdog when he fought Bernard Hopkins back in 2017, I believe. 2016, I'm sorry. So he was a big underdog. His very next fight, he lost. And then he was kind of like, he would win, lose, win. And then he got in a little hot streak. He beat Jesse Hart. Alvarez was his last fight, which was a hell of a fight, heck of a fight. And he's, being pushed by Top Rank right now. On the other end, you have Maxim Vlasov, which he is kind of also has 3 losses. If you look at his record, his thing is that he lost to Zurdo Ramirez, who is an undefeated fighter, very well known boxer. A lot of people are speculating him fighting, having a big time fight one of these days. But he did lose to Zurdo Ramirez in a fight that was competitive, and he did land some significant punches. So let's take a look at, we always do, blue side, Vegas favorite. We go and take a look at him and his keys of victory, guys. Okay, there we go. So for me, Joe Smith is a very, very, very physical, just boxer, just a person. He was very physical when he fought Bernard Hopkins, always moving forward, and that's the type of fighter he is. He's kind of one of those guys that prefers to come forward, prefers to land big punches, but he's someone that does engage a lot. So with that in mind, if you're going to be coming forward, you kind of want to be what's considered a tank, right? What we call a tank. So you're going to be in there, you're going to get hit, but you're going to keep moving forward, and that's your game plan. You know what I mean? Just kind of Mexican fighter style, or Mexican style. Come forward, take a hit, give a hit. Take a hit, give a hit. Take 2 hits, give 1 hit. You know what I mean? So I can see this fight going that way, especially with the type of opponent that he's fighting. So it doesn't necessarily mean always be taking that punch. It can be coming forward. You know what I mean? It can be slipping a couple, not clinching, but blocking punches. But just moving forward in general and trying to land those straight punches, those hard punches that we've seen you land, and just you being physical with him when you're on the inside. All right. Now the second one, I put a little tag for the number 2. It's set up and tag him. Now Maxim is already saying that he's a very predictable fighter, and I mean, let's be realistic. He's a come forward fighter that throws big punches, hoping to land. If he starts breaking you down because of his pressure, eventually he's going to start landing. So you have to set that up. Don't just come in thinking that you're going to be overwhelm this guy with just being physical, being a better athlete, or looking chiseled or looking big. You want to be effective when you do that. So you want to set up body shots. You want to set up head shots. If you're coming up with the right hand, start throwing punches around the guard. Maybe start throwing a jab up top to the right hand of the body. Mix it up and try to mix it up with not just that, with head movement. Don't walk in with your head on the line. Move your head around, throw that jab, and set things up. Who knows? You might be able to land a big punch just by setting it up in the early rounds, okay? Now, number 3, and this is kind of goes hand in hand with him being a tank and setting up the opponent, you got to take the fight to him. I've seen clips of this guy that you're gonna fight, and he's a very not unorthodox. He's a very, let's just say, he's an interesting fighter. So you're gonna have to bring it to him. He fights at his distance, at his pace. He's really good at doing that. So you, Joe Smith, you have to come forward, bring the fight to him, start landing punches up top to the body, start being physical, rough him up if you have to, and then eventually wear him down and get to him either in the middle of the fight and the end of the fight, or if you just land the big punch off the get-go. I do feel like this is a tricky fight for both fighters. Execution is always gonna play a significant role, but let's just be forward and take the fight to him. From his last fight, he looked like a very elusive fighter. So it doesn't seem like he's going to want to be in there and mixing it up with you. And with that being said, if you do those three things, if you're tanking, if you're coming forward and you set up and tag him, you'll be getting some cash. You're going to be winning, and the money line bet's going to be there. I don't know what prop bets are for knockouts right now. Those usually come out the day before. But it is a possibility with big punchers, the heavier weight classes. One punch can make a difference, and you never know. We'll see. All right, the red corner, the underdog. Not underdog because of me, underdog because that's what Vegas and the odds are saying. Now, Maxim, you are a very let's say unconventional fighter. Like I said, unconventional attack. You're like a slick fighter. You like to have your hands down. You like to keep a distance, but you also know how to throw off of that position. The thing with you, and I've seen you land uppercuts from down here, you have your hands just where you have them right there, and you'll throw uppercuts and you'll land. So you just got to keep that attack from all angles. Your feet work have to be there. Your head movement has to be there. And let me tell you something about this guy's head movement. Sometimes he's in front of me, he's just bouncing around. If he starts doing that and he gets in rhythm and he starts bouncing around, he starts tagging the Joe Smith, and he's having a hard time catching him, maybe that's what he means by Joe Smith is a very predictable fighter. I'm going to see every punch he throws at me. Maybe that's his plan, to counter the guy. Bigger guys tend to land bigger shots. So, I mean, let's just say he starts landing cleaner shots. He's the heavier guy. Could he stop him? I mean, at these weight classes, anyone can stop anyone. But number two, lock up if needed. If Joe Smith is coming forward, if he's trying to land those big bombs, if he's trying to land a right hand, left hook, and you're in the middle, in the middle of that, try to wrap up. It's okay to wrap up. Don't let it get excessive. And there's ways of, maybe you wrap up the first two times, and then the third time you kind of keep your body inside. You're inside. And instead of holding, you kind of slip off to the side, use your angles, and start punching through that. It's all up to you how you want to mix up this attack. We've seen the likes of Bernard Hopkins, Andre Ward. These two fighters were really, really good at when you would get going, they would stunt your offense with either some defense, they'll throw back at you, they'll counter, or they'll grab. When sometimes you'll be expecting the grab, so they'll get close to you and you kind of put your guard down, you're thinking they're going to hug, and then the punch comes. So it's all how you want to mix it up, lock up if needed. And number three, don't fall in love with fighting on the inside. I know I've said this before for other fights. I know I've said this before with some big hitters, but again, if you're very unconventional, you're measuring your distance, and you're throwing punches, and you're landing punches from the outside, you're setting them up, feinting to the body, going up top, and this is working, and then you feel like you got him up against the ropes, you can work and move around, give him an angle. Don't let him get a feel for you where he can shoot back if you're fighting from the inside. This is a big dude. He's physical. I'm not saying you can't hurt him or you can't be more physical, because let's be real. This guy's a taller fighter. He has a length. He has a distance, and he likes to move his head. He likes to stay in rhythm and bounce around. That's what I'm going to say. Just don't fall in love with one thing to where he can set you up with a big punch, especially if you're winning the early rounds. You're going into the 8th round and you're falling in love with you're outboxing him, then you start fighting on the inside for 2 rounds and he catches you and you lose the fight. That's the last thing we want. Don't make any silly mistakes. Execute, and if you do that, you will win, you will get your coin, and you will cash out as an underdog. Now, I will say one thing, and I'll say it on the next slide for you guys. And this is with my prediction, and this is why I'm going with this prediction. They're both capable opponents. They're both capable of winning. So my prediction is going to be Joe Smith. Now, the reason why, and I'm going to give you a why, because Maxim does have the ability, but the last fight that I saw that he was at his top, at his peak, um, it was in like 2015 against Zurdo Ramirez, and he put on a heck of a performance. He couldn't win the fight, but he was throwing punches and bunches, punches from different angles. He wasn't flat-footed. He was moving his head, and I was impressed with what I saw. But then I've recently take, and they say a lot of the times in boxing, you're only as good as your last fight. And his last fight, he won, and he won against an undefeated fighter, but that undefeated fighter had a lot of fluff in his record. Now, I went back and watched that fight. I was able to find it, and it was very weird how slow he looked. He was a slick fighter, but he was just really slow. Now, he was able to get through the opponent because the opponent had just fluff and wasn't used to someone throwing back at him. So Maxim's last fight was against an unbeaten opponent, but he looked very, very slow. He still had the head movement. He was still fighting with his hands down, throwing punches and bunches, but he looked slow. And that's what worries me right there, because a slick fighter that's a slow fighter isn't going to be much of a fighter in this fight. And with the type of fight that Joe Smith just fought, if he comes out that slow, that flat-footed, I honestly believe Joe Smith can, knock him out. He can get him out of there, and we'll collect knockout money if we bet on that. We don't know what fighter is going to show up, so before placing any type of wager, any type of bet, I would wait for the weigh-ins, see if he's a little soft, see if he looks drained, dehydrated, and then I would make my decision off of that. Because what I saw was I was a little concerned with how slow he looked for his last fight. Joe Smith is always in tip-top condition. He's a very physical opponent, and if he kind of fights or looks how I saw him in his last fight, maybe he was just fighting to the level of the competition. Maybe he was just, maybe, I don't know. It was actually a little bizarre how slow he looked. He pulled it off, but if you come up that slow, trying to be slick with that lack of speed, Joe Smith is someone that will land on you and he will cash out, especially if he's landing big bombs on you. So this is an interesting fight. Because Maxim does have the ability, but the speed on his last fight just wasn't there, and it made me uncomfortable to watch, thinking that I would be placing a bet on him. So I would just wait to the weigh-in. I personally, because of his last fight, what I saw, I think Joe Smith would win, just because the intensity on the both fights, if you play them side by side, the intensity Joe Smith's fight, just both of them getting hit, both of them throwing hard. It didn't seem that way for Maxim. So just based off that, that's what I'm going with Joe Smith. All right. And then earlier my last episode, I mentioned that I was looking at a parlay for Jojo Diaz and Joe Smith that pays a little bit under, like a minus 115, 150, which is very odd for that to happen. I would run with it too. Nothing too crazy, but just play a little something. And if you find another one, I do like Jojo Diaz and I do like Joe Smith Jr. at a parlay, that would be a decent amount of coin. And I do know that there was the champion that beat the BMF. If you can throw that in the mix too. I was thrown that suggestion in the comments of the Jojo Diaz, which was my previous episode, and that one actually comes off to a positive, to a even, like you bet 100, you get 100 back, almost dollar for dollar with Jojo Diaz. So remember, at your own risk, whatever you're willing to look into, make sure you look into it. But that's my pick for Saturday. If I have enough time this week, I'll make another video on the Blue Nose, the Lopez fight. A very interesting fight. But this weekend I will make the Oscar Valdez fight video and a couple more, and we'll keep it going, guys. Please, once again, thank you for stopping by. Thank you for stopping by at the box office. But please, guys, if you guys can just please like, subscribe. Please like and subscribe to my channel. Greatly appreciated. Motivates us. I am planning on doing more animations with my interface, my layout that I have going on here. Trying to bring you guys more visuals so that you can see more than pictures. So please, with that comes more time. Please subscribe, like this video. Take care, guys.